All right. Hi, Jayden.
Hey,
How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you?
Well, getting through these interesting times. But yeah, doing all right. First, congratulations, Jayden. We're incredibly pleased that you have won this honor. Uh, you're obviously incredibly deserving, and I think everyone was very impressed by your work. So I'm hoping maybe we can start off with just a brief. I think people would be interested in hearing more about your honors research. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, so um, my honours project is surrounding something called photogrammetry. And photogrammetry is something that is being used in, I guess, many industries now, as well as the creative arts. And I'm looking at something called super macro photogrammetry, and that means creating these 3D models from pictures that are captured at a very high magnification. And the reason I'm looking at doing that is because there hasn't really been any full or proper examples of people doing this. And so I wanted to explore this way of capturing these images at a very high magnification, and from those images it creates a 3D model, and then I'll be looking at how I can use those 3D models for use in say creative arts, and maybe games, installations, 3D printing these models, modifying them in a way, and also looking at how they could be used for education or say for research purposes or something like that.
Can you tell us more? I think a lot of people are probably wondering, what is photogrammetry?
So photogrammetry is the process of capturing a large number of images of a real life object from multiple different angles. So if you picture for example, a rock, you would get out a camera and you go and take a bunch of photos from all different angles of that rock. And then through software on a computer, those images are processed, and out comes a super high resolution, highly detailed 3D model. So that's what photogrammetry is.
And what do you mean by a bunch of images?
So from previous experiments that I've done, so I have done experiments with some smaller objects, definitely not the size that I'm doing now, but smaller objects. So one example, I scanned some fungi, and that I took 500-600 photos of that fungi from all different angles, and processed a model through that.
Gotcha. And then I've discussed this with you before, but can you tell us a bit more about this system that you're designing? In fact, I don't suppose you have the things near you now.
Yeah, I do actually. I've got a.
Can we see those?
Yeah. So just here. I don't know how well you can see that.
I can see it very well.
I'll take it around the other angle. Is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
So my system is to make this process.
Can you take it back to the system?
Yeah, sure.
And just point us out what's what.
So it's a very rough.
And they think it's a bit of a mystery, It's like, here's a bunch of wires and a camera. What is all this?
So it's a bit rough at the moment, but if I can get around, sorry, I'm against a wall. So here obviously is the camera, and I have my lens on here with something called extension tubes, and that increases the magnification of the images. Right here is my subject. So at the moment I've got a coffee bean that I'm attempting to scan.
So these are quite small scale items then?
Very small, very small. I'm trying to think of things I can scan at the moment. I'm sort of looking, because of where I am at the moment, stuck at home. I'm looking at maybe things in the pantry. So I've got a coffee bean. I've been looking at doing a peppercorn, but I'm definitely going to look at different things, see what else I can actually scan. So, but yes, the idea is that they're very small. Yeah, so I have it on this platform thing here. So this will rotate 360 degrees, so the camera can capture it at all different angles. And then this here will allow the camera to, this platform to slide forwards and backwards, so to bring it closer to the lens or take it further away. And then all this bunch of wires here, I've got different buttons to control the rotation of that platform and the sliding of that platform.
Wow.
And that's pretty much the setup at the moment.
And then when in that process of doing that coffee bean, you would have 500-600 images taken.
Well, it will probably end up being more than that. My experiments so far have sort of shown that I can't use techniques that I've used before of taking single images at all different angles. It looks like I will need to be taking a bunch of pictures at the same angle but at different focal points and then merging them together. So the 500-600 images may now become something like, maybe, I'm not sure yet, but 1,000 to 2,000 images.
Wow, so each one of these files might be 5-10 gigs total.
When it's processed through the software, it generates a lot of data, and this can end up being in 20, 30, 40, 50 gigabytes at a time.
Wow, that's impressive. So, so you've been given this honor, and again, we think you're incredibly well deserving, and it's exciting. And so I'm just curious, what does this mean to you, this honor? What do you think? How will this help you? Do you think it'll have an impact on what you're doing now with your honors degree?
For sure. The equipment that I need to explore this sort of stuff well can become a little bit expensive. The camera I'm using at the moment is used and it has some issues with it, so I may end up looking at replacing that because it leaves marks on all of the images. The lens is quite expensive, and at the moment I'm using a less than ideal way of getting to the magnification. So when using extension tubes, which are quite cheap, they can cause some diffraction on the images. So getting a better suited lens I might be looking at. Storage costs for all the data that generates is quite huge. So yeah, there's on the software to merge all those images into one is a little bit expensive as well. So I'll definitely find use for the money that they've given me.
Oh, that's great. It's good to know that. It's good to know you have a concrete need for it, that it will actually help your research. So that's lovely to know. So I'm just curious, one of the things that we love to see our students do, and knowing you personally, I know that you've always devoted part of your life to doing this, which I've always admired. I'm just curious about what do you think about this idea that, artists, designers, people working in these creative fields, about the different ways that they can give back to the community, and maybe your own experiences with that, or your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, my, I guess, foray into the creative field is pretty much based on others who were willing to impart their knowledge free of charge. And a lot of my knowledge comes from creatives all over the world who have shared videos online and their experience is everything. And so through my project, I hope to be able to produce something that's easy to follow along, it's free to access, and that people can use what I've developed in ways that I wouldn't have thought of. And it'd be great to see what sort of outcomes, I guess, would come from being able to share the information and I guess the research that I do.
So you're hoping that people experiment in a myriad of ways. Do you have any experiments planned for the next few months?
Yeah. So from the comfort of my home, I've been sort of brainstorming different ways that I could perhaps show off the 3D models that are generated. I'm looking at doing some work with projection mapping and how I could integrate these models into maybe an interactive projection mapping installation. I'm looking at doing.
Can you just hold on for a second before we do that? I think a lot of people in these kind of fields are quite specialized, and of course I understand what you're saying. But can you briefly explain projection mapping to people?
So projection mapping is the idea of, I guess, using a projector to project onto an object or a surface. And generally, with projection mapping, you will single out an object or single out a surface or something. So again, let's say I'm projecting onto a rock. I would project only onto that rock, and I would somehow project an artwork or something onto it that would be, I guess, very visually interesting, and it would stand out from its background.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. So you were explaining other experiments. So one is projection mapping. What was the second one?
I'm looking at doing maybe a short virtual reality game, because in my mind of having these very small objects at such a high resolution, meaning that they can be viewed at a very large size, my idea was to shift the way you interact with these objects, that these things are much bigger than you and you're the size of an ant. So you might have a coffee bean that's as big as you or bigger, that you have to, I don't know, navigate around or interact with. For educational purposes, I want to make a virtual reality museum that's quite interactive, and people can see these tiny objects that they would never have seen before in such a huge, detailed manner. I think would be quite interesting. I've got quite a few ideas written down, and I've got to try and figure out what ones will work and what ones won't. And I think that will happen over time as I see what results I get from the research that I'm doing. But I've got a few ideas, and I think there's a few that I definitely will try, like the projection mapping and the virtual reality museum.
It's interesting you say virtual reality museum, because clearly, and certainly in the time we're currently living in, this is something that more people are exploring. If you develop something like that, do you see that being for a local audience or a global audience?
Well, I never see the need of having it restricted to a certain audience. So definitely a global audience, something that anyone throughout the world would be able to download and use would be it would be amazing, and especially in the times wherein people are going to be spending a lot of time at home. So having that opportunity to bring these experiences into a home anywhere around the world would be amazing. And I definitely don't think it should be a localized thing. If anyone around the world can access it, I intend to make it that way.
We're incredibly pleased. I think all of us have been very impressed by your work in the honors degree, but more specifically, been impressed by how I don't think you're not one of those people that narrows down what you do to what happens in the degree. I think you see yourself as being more holistic than that, that you see this as a career that in many ways you've already begun. Is that accurate?
Oh, for sure. I think, although I do like to explore anything and everything, and I try not to narrow myself down on only specific things. I do want to look at perhaps a career in photogrammetry, and being able to just explore and produce these 3D models that I guess would never have been created before, for people to have a look at. That's sort of something that really excites me, and having the knowledge of knowing how I can share those 3D models, whether it's through a virtual reality museum or projection mapping. It's kind of what really excites me. So my goal is to get a job within this field of photogrammetry.
Wow, that's impressive. Again, Jayden, I think everyone is very impressed by your work, and it's an honor to be able to see behind the scenes in terms of what you're doing. It really is one of those truly innovative projects that we could see leading into really world-leading visual arts practice, and a really interesting new exploration of technology. So do you have anything else to add?
Not really. Just a massive thanks to those who sort of overlooked this project and saw great potential in it. It's really that money will definitely help with funding some of the things that I need for this project, because it will add up and it's a little bit expensive. So I just want to thank all the organizations, ADFAS, for the support.
Okay, great. Again, thanks for your time, and hope you're doing well and keeping safe. And I'm sure that we'll reach back out to you to see how your research is going in the near future. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks for your time.
Don't hang up. Let me just. How do I stop recording? Maybe just dismiss.
Oh, I think if you press the 3 dots.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.